Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's IMC webinar. I'm Hélène, and it's a pleasure to be your host today. At IMC, the International Mentoring Center, we are dedicated to creating transformative experiences for professionals worldwide through mentoring, leadership development, and community building. We believe in the power of connection, share wisdom, and authentic stories to inspire personal and professional growth. Today, we are very pleased to welcome our speaker, Debby Spaltmann. Debby is a seasoned executive and personal coach certified with the DFC and trained as a Marshall Goldsmith Executive Stakeholder Center coach. With over 35 years of experience in strategic marketing, public relations, and leadership communications, she brings a rare blend of clarity, insight, and compassion to her work. Drawing on psychological approaches such as CBT, NLP, Gestalt Therapy, ACT, and mindfulness, helps leaders bridge the gap between who they are and who they wish to become. Through her brand, Destiny Sculpting, she empowers mentors, coaches, and executives to grow broadly, act wisely, and lead with purpose. In today's session, Mentor Me But Don't Tell Me What to Do, Debby will explore a common but rarely discussed challenge in mentoring, the paradox of help resistance. She will guide us through the emotional, psychological, and relational dynamics of mentoring someone who is present but not fully engaged. Before we begin, just a few quick notes. This session will last about 60 minutes. Debby will speak for about 40 minutes, followed by an interactive Q&A. And now, without further delay, I'm honored to hand the virtual stage over to Debby. Debby, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Hélène. And you asked me for a presentation, and I just have to do that from Gast, right? So let me share my screen with you folks. And here we go. So is it okay? Can you see it all? Thank you. So hello from me to everyone here. And thank you again, Hélène, and to the IMC for the invitation to come today. As Hélène said, my name is Debby Spaltmann. And today I'd like to share with you some strategies on how you can be more effective as a mentor, especially if you notice that things seem to be stuck with your mentee and if you have a feeling that you're not getting through to them for some reason. If you've come across this before, kudos, because the first thing that this tells me is that you even noticed. And the next thing is that you even cared. So well done. You're aware that something is off. And I'm assuming you're curious to find out more about how that kind of stuckness or resistance could be sabotaging your mentoring. So today I'll be covering some things that might help you get a better idea of what that could mean. And I want to offer you some tools that you can use to address that. I used to work in marketing. I was in advertising and market research, and I even got a degree in strategic marketing planning. Yet I found my calling in the area of communications and public relations. And as Hélène has already said, I've done this for a good 35 years or so. I think we can all agree that the profession of marketing and PR has its own reputation. We marketing folks are doing our jobs right. Then we ultimately make the boring stuff interesting. So what makes deodorant sexy? And the difficult stuff look easy. So what's so hard about choosing life insurance, right? Because marketing is about persuasion and public relations is about creating, shaping, and managing your reputation. And today, I'd like for you to transfer these attributes, persuasiveness and managing your reputation, into your mentoring situation. Mind you, we want to do this ethically, but managing how you connect to your mentee partner will have an impact on how persuasive you are. And the reputation you have with that partner, with that person, mentee, is going to be able to determine, are you considered reliable? Are you considered trustworthy? Do they think that you have their best interests in mind? So that is going to play a key role in how successful your mentoring will be as well. For me, being mentored and being a mentor has taught me that real success comes when you have a connection to one another. And when you're both not afraid to be vulnerable, and because you trust one another, your messaging, your reputation, all this lines up. And to be honest, the connections from my mentoring relationships have always brought immense value to me, both in my personal and my professional life. So let's get started. First off, the IMC core competencies are going to be reflected in everything that I speak about today. But in particular, we'll be looking at 2 of the 9 core competencies, and one that's going to be getting particular attention today is effective communication. And the other one will be relationship building and maintenance, relationship maintenance. So let's start off with this. I'm curious. I want to ask you right from the start. Have you ever come across a situation where someone has asked for your help or your guidance, only to have them turn around and talk down your ideas? Have they explained to you that they don't think what you suggested would work for them? Maybe they say, yeah, but they turn around and do exactly the opposite. Or they even totally ignore what you've said. Have you ever experienced how someone else has navigated resistance when that came up for them? When they were the person giving advice and they managed it somehow? Were you ever impressed by someone else's ability to really connect? I'd like you to drop a comment in the chat or the Q&A section if you noticed what they did, or if you had a valuable experience yourself, how you've come across this kind of resistance, and if it has changed how you behave as a mentor. Helene, I'm going to ask you to check that and monitor that, and we'll come back to that in a little bit and look at those inputs. Okay. So first off, thanks for sharing if you have shared or if you're sharing, because I want to come back to those in a little bit. You may find out that your experience is going to be covered here today. So let's start off with getting a good understanding of what resistance in a mentoring relationship really is. So it shows up in different ways. We first need to discern if someone is resisting for a reason. We haven't just figured it out yet. Maybe somebody's just going through a speed bump in their progress. And that isn't resistance per se. So the first thing you want to do when you're in a situation where you think they're not doing what I want them to do, or they're not listening or something, is what are you defining as resistance? How is it showing up? Have you thought why this resistance could be showing up now in this particular situation? And what thoughts do you have as to what is going on for this person? So it does show up in different ways, and let's have a look at that. There are three ways, three major reasons for someone to resist your efforts. And the first one is what is called psychological reactance. It was first identified by psychologist Jack Brem in 1966, but it's been around since biblical times because that's what Eve did with Adam and Eve. She's in the Garden of Eden. She takes from the forbidden fruit. Why? Because it is forbidden, because she was not supposed to. And that is exactly the opposite of what she was told to do. That is what psychological reactance is. It's showing up as defiance, as withdrawal, argumentative, even doing the exact opposite of what is suggested. And this is when someone feels like their freedom is being threatened by you or by someone else. The person giving them advice is trying to take control. Another example quite recently is what happened during the COVID epidemic, when the government told people to wear face masks to protect others from COVID. Some folks protested, they refused. They viewed wearing a mask as an infringement upon their freedom. One thing that's important to note here is that the person may not even realize they are acting defensively. It's often unconscious as an automatic response. Don't want to put out in judgment here. And then the next one is resistance can show up as ego defense. It's an identity protection. This is when the person believes that accepting help can feel like they are admitting to being incompetent, or they're giving in to being vulnerable. They reject guidance in order to shield their self-image. This can show up as denial, projection, rationalization, avoidance. In cases like this, accepting your help may feel like a threat to their self-image. They see themselves as competent, smart, independent, and you're coming up here and telling them it's different. And the third version, the third key reason for showing up, or for resistance showing up in someone's mentoring situation, is that for some people, change, even if it's positive change, triggers anxiety. You are, in the way they see the world, asking them to leave their comfort zone. This isn't about defying you or about protecting their ego. It's about avoiding the anxiety of stepping into something uncertain. These folks generally prefer the discomfort of the known to the uncertainty of the unknown. For them, change could imply a loss of identity, relationship, what they perceive as where they feel safe. So when you notice any of the scenarios that appear like reactance or identity protection or fear, then they are probably resisting your guidance. And those were some of the reasons why. Now let's take a look at some of the reasons how, or some of the ways that they do this how, okay? So we have overt resistance. This is straightforward. They're openly rejecting your guidance. They're openly disagreeing with you. They won't make any attempt to soften their messages because they're totally confident in their stance. And they don't take any effort to mask their objections. They'll say stuff like, I honestly don't think these goals are relevant to what I need, or I know you've been trying to help, but I don't see the point because it doesn't apply to me. I've been doing this for years. I don't think I need mentoring in that particular area. Have you come across that? Yeah. When this comes up, what you're facing is overt, straightforward resistance. They are, in other words, telling you to let them be with this. And then we have what is called passive resistance. This is more challenging to identify. This could show up as a lack of engagement, like they agree to take action but don't follow through on it, or they will avoid specific topics, or they steer the conversation away from an issue you were trying to address. An example of this is you suggest to your mentee that they reach out to a key stakeholder before the next session, and they smile and say, sure, I'll think about it. But the next time they've made no progress, and now they've forgotten who that person was. They change the topic when you bring it up again. The thing is, it's important for you now is to become aware that what your next best step is you need to adjust your communication style because something else is going on for them beneath the surface. And once you have a better idea of what that is, you will be better equipped to help them move forward. Helena asked folks earlier to share some of their experiences in the chat and Q&A, how resistance has shown up for them. Have you got any feedback in the meantime?
Thank you, Debbie. We actually have a question from Bernard saying, yes, but there is always some reason why the mentee can do what the mentor is suggesting. It's too hard, on the same time not right, or it's too risky, and so on and on. What's the best way to help them been there?
Okay, what's the best way to what?
There is a typo. If you click on the chat, it's
okay. Let me look at the chat. Yes. Okay. Yes, but that's the been there, but. Okay, got it. There's always a reason. Yeah. Right. That is true. And what's the best way to help them bend their butts? That's a good question. And actually, what you're doing is you're trying to find out what's going on underneath. So what is going on beneath there? I could, but. And actually, there's a very, very easy sentence that you can use for that. And it's, okay, you said I can, but how about we change that sentence to I can, and this is how I could do it.
Yeah.
Change the word but to and. And this is what I need to be able to do it. Change that but to an and. That's all it takes, because you're opening up the ability to see things in a larger view. You're taking away the fear. Okay. So, shall we go, or do you have any more? No.
No more question. Please, guys, feel free to share your question in the chat or Q&A box, or you can also raise your hand, and I will let Debbie know. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Helene. All right. So, let's talk more about how you can deal with this when you have overt resistance or you have this passive resistance. Let's talk about that a little bit. So, like I said, there's something happening beneath the surface. And here's what you want to remember. Resistance isn't the enemy. It's a signal. It's information they're sharing with you. It's information you can use. It's particularly in situations where passive resistance shows up. They are showing you behavior that is intended to give you the illusion that they're cooperating, when in reality, what they're actually doing is self-sabotaging. So they're avoiding what it takes for them to grow. And it does make you wonder why they would do that, right? So let's explore what's really going on beneath the surface. But we don't want to be judgmental about this, because their resistance is serving a purpose for them. And it is up to me, the mentor, to figure out what that purpose is. So resistance or guidance that you're sharing could be serving the purpose to protect their autonomy, or to shield their vulnerability, or it's slowing down the speed of change. Maybe you're just going too fast for them. Maybe they want to test you as the mentor. Maybe they want to hold on to the familiar. Maybe it's helping them to avoid the price of success. But they're not telling themselves this. They're not telling themselves this. What they're telling themselves is something like, I'm not ready yet. And not being ready is not showing weakness. It's demonstrating wisdom and patience with myself. Or, this doesn't fit in my world. The advice you're giving me doesn't really match what's in my reality. Or as the saying goes, it's better safe to be sorry. So for me, I better hesitate than regret. Those are some of the things that might be going on underneath the surface for them. So what you want to do is to take a show of this resistance as a cue, because what they're doing is they're telling you something very important about themselves. Every time you come across a situation that frustrates you because you feel like you're not moving forward with your mentee, think of it like this. Their resistance is giving you information, and you're just going to have to take a detour to get where you need to go. So resistance is information. It's not a roadblock. It may be a roadblock to their success at the moment, but we're at a point where we can turn their pushback into progress. Let's look at how we can do that. So we're going to look at some tools now, how you can address resistance. When we have a skill, we're much better equipped to solve a problem. And good mentorship is a skill, meaning it is something that you can learn. And it really isn't as difficult as it sounds. The first skill is to have a clear-cut idea of who you are and how you will be the leader in this relationship. That's your role. You're the leader in this relationship. You can plan for how you will work together and how you will communicate with the person you are mentoring. After all, you are the person who's giving advice. You're the one who's giving guidance, and you're supposed to be at least one step ahead of them. And leadership communication is also a skill. And this isn't just about talking better. It's about connecting well. Your words have the ability to move people toward a shared understanding, shared trust, action. And with all new skills, the more we practice, the better we get at it. And I wanted to share with you an outline that I use for leaders to create their own leadership model. It's a plan. It's for how we help leaders plan how they will show up. And I want to share it here with you today. It's from the Global Coach Group Authentic Leadership Model, and it's a guide that I've adapted for mentors for myself, and it will help you, if you want to copy it, to create your own leadership brand. So let's have a look at it. So the Authentic Leadership Model is actually breaking it down into a personal leadership brand. And let me just break this down, because here's what it is. You are going to be looking at these 5 points from a leadership point of view. And let's see if I can get this rolling. You want to assure success. So it's your job to assure success. As a leader, you're assuring success for the organization. As the mentor, you are assuring success for the mentoring relationship. We're talking about the relationship here, not the outcome of the person that you are mentoring, and not the outcome they are striving for. You are striving for success of the mentoring relationship. Then you want to get clarity on, how will I ensure that we both grow as I help my mentee grow? How will I reflect on change, and what can I do to recognize when I'm the one who needs to change? Not just them, me. Maybe I'm not listening good enough. Maybe I'm bulldozing over them. Maybe there's something I need to do. Continuous change means, how will I reflect on change, and what can I do to recognize when I am the one who needs to change? And then we have engage people. In the mentorship version, in the leadership version, let's put it this way. The leadership version is, as a leader, you want to engage your team. As the mentor, you want to engage your mentee. And that is actually as vital as what you're actually doing. This means, like, you both set clear goals. You both set clear and defined boundaries. You define who has ownership of which tasks, things like that. Not for just that reason that you have decided how are you going to engage with them, but it's also crucial for you as the mentor, because it helps to make sure that you don't burn out as the mentor either. If you feel like you're the one who's always giving, and nothing's coming back. And boundaryless inclusion in the leadership coaching model is about empowering people and encouraging global thinking. Here in this revised version for mentorship, I want to put it forward for you like this. Ask how you, as the mentor, can be sure that you are encouraging them to expand beyond their perceived boundaries. So, what is the challenge component that they may be afraid to address? How will you encourage their expansion? In other words, how will you avoid them from holding back? And how can you support them as they resist to move out of their comfort zone? I want to keep this question in mind. How can I help them stretch? Communication. Because we cannot not communicate. Think about what you will do to ensure a positive attitude in your communications. How will you go about encouraging constructive dialogue? Have you shared a shared vision for this mentoring relationship with your mentee? And then I've given the anagram ALM another meaning as well. It's acknowledge, listen, and move. When you've designed a framework for yourself, be it like this one or something you have for yourself, you're setting a baseline that guides you and that helps to keep you grounded. It makes it that much easier for you to support your mentee without you having to think a lot about how to go about doing it. You have a plan. So, this is my framework. Create your own. When you've defined your own personal leadership brand or however you decide to call it, you're taking the guesswork out of how you will show up in a mentoring relationship. Another thing you can do is use curiosity as a tool. Let that be your compass. Replace the question or even just the thought. Why aren't you doing this with what's important to you about this? Get clarity on where is the North Star for them? Where is the North Star for you? Where is the North Star for the situation at hand? When curiosity is your compass, you're using questions with the intent to lead a mindset shift, not to interrogate someone. You're putting the emphasis on exploration, not on judgment. You can also use grace to address resistance. Meet it with grace. Meaning, before you do anything, be someone. Are you showing up as your real self or as someone who's trying to fulfill some kind of expectation? If you notice that you've lost yourself in too many details, what can you do? Just stop. Be authentic. Be you. Strategic detachment. And you can stay strategic by practicing detachment. As a mentor, it's your role to hold the space, not the outcome. It's not your job to fix the mentee. It's your role to hold the process. Being detached means you avoid getting enmeshed, not that you're cold and heartless. It means you are giving them the opportunity to discover clarity, take charge of themselves, to grow and develop, and to push their own boundaries. So let's move forward. You've been encouraged to define your own personal leadership brand as a mentor, and now we want to see what you can do to stay connected and effective in this mentoring relationship.
Can I interrupt you, Debbie, because we have two questions in the chat? You can
Uh-huh.
cover them now. So the first question is from Bernard. He's saying, I recently had a potential mentee referred to me by his organization. It soon became clear that he had been sent to me. He hadn't sought a mentor. He didn't really understand what a mentor was for. He didn't even seem particularly keen to find out. Am I wasting my time and ease if I agree to work with him?
Good question. And in principle, it's an old coaching adage. If someone is not ready for your help, then you can't help them. The only thing you can do in a situation like this is to understand, why does this person feel like he was being sent? What is the reason for the organization? What does he think that the organization feels is important for him to go to mentoring? What is their goal for him? And then you can work together with that person to see, are they interested? Do they want to grow? Is there something set in the future for them? Maybe they won't. Maybe the organization feels that they're not living up to their potential. They could be the next big thing in the company, and they're just hanging back and not giving what they could be giving. I think in that time, in that kind of a situation, it's helping the mentee, the person that is coming to you, to understand that there is an opportunity for their growth, and let's explore that. Let's see what's going on. Is that okay? Good for you?
Yes. And Gary is saying, great answer, Debbie.
Thank you, Gary.
And we have another question from Patty. She's saying, when there is a lack of commitment, how do you get the person involved again without being pushy?
True. Yeah. That is actually what this is. That is what we're talking about here today. The thing is that it's a communication question. You always have to think about, how am I approaching this person? Are they at a situation where they can't accept mentorship? That means that something's going on in their life. It has nothing to do with the mentorship or the mentoring issue. Or is it something that they don't think it's important? They don't trust you. It's one of those three psychological things that I mentioned earlier. You know, the reactants. I don't do this because I just don't do this. I don't do what anybody else tells me to do. Or I'm someone who I know everything. I don't need you to tell me how to do this because I know everything. And the other one is I'm afraid to leave my comfort zone. And that's why I'm not going to be able to do this. I can't do this commitment thingy. And it's up to the coach or the mentor in this position, in this case, to find out what it is. What's the reason? And you do that with asking the right questions and with exploring with them, but you're using their resistance together with the questions that you have. And we'll be covering that in a little bit as well. I'll go into that too.
Good.
Good?
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So here's what I was going to say is that a good mentoring relationship is going to take intentional effort on your part. Resistance is not rebellion. That's what I said. It's information. And what this means is that we apparently have a situation that needs to be solved. So I have another exercise for you. I want you to drop it into the chat. I want you to think about what is your go-to strategy when you have a problem or a challenge that you need to solve. So what do you do? I don't know. Some people, they create a to-do list. They'll talk to their own mentor. They do research. They ask ChatGPT, whatever it is. What do you personally do when you have a problem or you have a situation or when a challenge shows up for you in a situation like this? And I'm going to ask you to write it down in a full sentence. And I want you to use punctuation, capital letters, small letters. Think of it as a message to your boss. Write down at least one of your go-to strategies when you have a problem to solve. And we'll be coming back to this, Helene, in a moment, okay? But I think this is important, and we want to have a look at that in just a moment. So drop your go-to strategy in the chat box. We're talking about intentional effort now. Intentional effort means you're turning something you normally do automatically into a conscious choice. So in the case of demonstrating empathy, you want to think of empathy not just as a personality trait that you have, but as a strategic practice, something that you do deliberately, and you deliberately bring it into the conversation. And when you think of empathy as a strategy, that means that you are aware of the value of demonstrating empathy in a situation that could be challenging. It is also something that you can utilize as a tool to diffuse resistance. This isn't about pretending to be something that you're not. It's intentional effort, being aware that using empathy as an intentional effort is a conscious choice. An intentional effort can also be used with patience as a strategy. You are demonstrating that you are able to create a safe space for someone to express their concerns. When you're intentionally aware that demonstrating patience sends a signal to your mentee, you are, again, doing something that fosters trust and reduces resistance before it even has a chance to manifest. Patience is more than just waiting. It's an active action. It creates a feeling of psychological safety. And when you demonstrate patience, you're sending a powerful message. Patience can be broken down into three things, by the way: the words you say, the behaviors you show, and the mindset that you have. I see there's some questions in the chat. We'll be looking at those in a second. When you lead with empathy and patience, intentionally and on purpose, you're setting the stage for real open dialogue on both sides. And when resistance shows up in a mentoring conversation, you want to start the next conversation by fostering emotional safety. This is for both of you. This is valuable for both of you. This is about reducing fear of judgment on both sides. You are intentionally encouraging open dialogue. Openness is a shared norm. It means that you're both inviting and committing to one another, that you're both willing to speak frankly together. You foster this by using language that signals reciprocal openness. Let's have a look at what you wrote in your go-to strategies, okay? So I think it's in the chat, right? I can look at that?
Yes.
How you did this? Okay, and before I look, I'm going to share with you what this means. Did you use all caps? Did you use all small letters? Did you have call-outs for certain words? So certain words were big letters, capital letters. Did you end your fully written statement with what kind of punctuation? An exclamation mark or a period? Or does your strategy suggest you're looking for answers to questions? So did a question mark end the sentence? Does this tell you anything about what you do when a problem arises? One of the hallmarks of authentic leadership is being able to ask powerful questions that evoke new thoughts and new ideas. And intentionally being aware that a powerful question does not imply a judgment. Rather, it is an open-ended, and it generally begins with the words, what, how, when, where, or who. rarely with why. So let's have a look.
So we have the first question from Martin. He's saying,
Mhm.
mentee and mentor relationship ultimately an equal one? Or as a coach, are you positioning yourself as somebody they look up to?
Mm, yes and no. You want to be someone they can trust. And someone you look up to, you trust them. You want them to look up to you in the sense that you are someone that they value. You are someone that they appreciate. You don't want to have a hierarchy in this sense, but you do want to have that respect for one another. And that's why I say, yes and no. It's not nobody's looking down on anyone here. We're trying to get at eye level, and the conversation is about, how can I help you? How can I be supportive for you? Where are you stuck? Where I have experience that I could help you move forward with.
Good. Then we have a question from Gary.
Mhm.
He's saying, going back to the previous question, I wonder if someone has been sent and they feel frustrated, is empathize with them and find some agreements to begin to build a relationship that is not confrontational. Yeah.
Is empathy with them to find agreement. Yes. Yes. I mean, if someone has been sent and they feel frustrated, is empathizing with them to find some agreement to begin the relationship that it's non-confrontational. Take that out of the box. Take that out of the equation. If they're frustrated, that's their issue. That's not your issue. You're giving them the space to be frustrated. You're giving them the space to say what needs to be said. But then you're actually the one who's there to say, we're going to move forward and beyond that. And if you have tools to help with frustration, good. If not, what you can do is only help with guidance on how to manage their own frustration. Let's say if somebody is, I don't know, you have shared office space and someone is really, really loud in the room, and you just don't know how you can work there anymore because it's really driving you nuts. You can ask them questions on how would you be able to work that? Could you work more from home? Could you work in a conference room? Are there other options? What do you have as options? And look at that as something, look at it as that. You want to build a relationship, but you're not there to solve their problem. You're there to give them the space to address their problem, to be creative, to be curious about how they can solve their problem. Does that help?
Yes. Then we have a question from Patty saying, I will go seek connection with a person whom I'm pretty sure can help me find clarity.
True. Yes. Yes. That's the best way to move forward. Someone you trust, someone you think that will help you. Good move. Yeah. You don't want to waste your time as a mentee.
Good. I have a comment from Renu saying,
Mhm.
go to strategy, take a few steps back, reflect upon the problem, put myself in the other person's shoes, get wider perspectives from others.
I can see that in the chat, and what I see is a lot of dots. So what that means to me is openness. That's how I'm interpreting this. It's like, I don't have the total answer for this right now, but it's open. We can change, we can evolve, we can move. Can't get any better than that.
Good comment from Bernard saying, when I'm confronted with a situation or a problem that requires me to make a decision, I use the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act. Rinse and repeat.
Rinse and repeat, right? Okay. So I think that the idea of having a process for this is also, it's key. If you have a process for how you will address this, be that the plan that I mentioned earlier or whatever it is, having a plan is going to make it easy for you to know what to do. So you're not spending a lot of time racking your brain. How can I fix this? Oh, what's going on here? Ruminating on thoughts, curious, all of those things. Those are having a plan. That's OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, act. Is that, if that is going to work for you, brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Then we have a comment from Gary saying, I think Debbie went on to cover this. Good. Then we have a comment from Dr. Wazit saying, hello, Debbie, my question, what strong spots, what point and difference, by the way, tools,
Mhm.
CGALM, or other coaching model and mentoring tools, such as 33S, show, share, suggest? Thank you.
Okay. Yes. Thank you for that question. There is no one set way. I don't consider there's one set way. What I do think is important is for you as the mentor to be consistent, reliable, and show up so that they know what to expect of you. So if you're someone who shows, shares, and suggests, your mentee is going to know that's what's going to happen when I have a question. If you're the type person who does, for example, the ALM, the assure success, and things like that, then they know what to expect of you. The idea is that your mentee knows what to expect of you so that the resistance doesn't even start. You want to capture resistance before it even manifests itself as something that is always going on. If there is resistance going on, that means, like I said, there's something else going on. There's something else underneath the surface. It's something that you can address through, if you have a plan to do it. Maybe you're not a good fit, and then you need to share, tell that person there's a different mentoring situation that you need to go to. Maybe you need a different mentor, but it's not just one way. It's not just one way. It's just as you are unique, your mentoring situation is going to be unique. Your mentoring communication, the way you address mentoring is going to be unique. And that's what makes us all valuable, as mentors. So,
Yes, I agree with that. And then we have a question from Steven saying, noticing that we all have blind spots, filters, and expectations. What do you suggest for mentors not to get caught in bias?
yeah, true. Yeah, that's true. We all do. We're human. That's who we are. That's what we do. And I mean, there are exercises, mindfulness, awareness exercises, things like that. But back to I see this, I got it, Debbie, dancing with the mentee and trust the process. Yes, thank you. That's where I was said, have a plan, have a process, have an idea of how you will ensure that you are growing along with your mentee. So if you're thinking about they're changing, but I'm stuck, then it isn't going to work. So how are you going to ensure that you are on that change scale as well? If you notice they're moving beyond you, maybe it's time to hand them over to a different mentor. Maybe it's time for you to step back or to learn differently. I think there are a lot of opportunities for mentors to understand that they don't have to have all the answers. They don't have to have all the answers. It's just a matter of being present, giving the mentee the space and the opportunity to think out loud, and maybe show them ways that they can be curious about what's going on for them. I think we covered that as well in a little bit. So I continue if you're okay.
Mm. Okay.
Uh, let's see here. Yes. Intentionally be aware that a powerful question does not imply a judgment. Let it be open ended and let it begin with the words what, how, when, where, or who. Try to stay away from why. So we've covered a bit already. Now, this is the last section. This is how to foster trust in your mentoring relationship. Before I use a term, even if it's a word that I think we all understand, I like to get agreement on how I define that term in this situation. And it helps me to be sure that we're all talking about the same thing, we're on the same page about it, and that we both have the same understanding of what we're talking about. So, in the context of trust in the mentoring relationship, I want to define trust as this. It is the emotional and psychological safety that allows both mentor and mentee to be open, honest, and vulnerable. What that means is the mentee believes the mentor has their best interests at heart and not their own agenda. And the mentor believes that the mentee is engaged in good faith, even if they're confused, if they're resistant, if they're slow to act. And both partners feel that it's safe to express doubt, challenge ideas, or admit mistakes. Let's have a look at what you can do to foster this kind of trust. Building trust from the very beginning. That's what it does. It sets the tone for everything that follows. When you have trust in one another, you are significantly reducing the likelihood of resistance showing up later on. You can ask thoughtful, relevant questions right from the start. Show them your genuine interest and openness right at the beginning of your relationship. Ask them how they want to be mentored. Ask them what didn't work in a previous mentoring situation. Use curiosity as your compass. Explore what that mentee really truly wants. Ask them why they think you would be the best person to support them. And if you have any questions that you use when you set up a mentoring relationship, why don't you share those with us in the chat too, so that we can see how you do it? And when you're in a mentoring relationship, it helps to remind yourself that you're in a loop and you're not on a straight line. You want to think in cycles and expect that you will be looping back to topics that have come up before. It's up to you to normalize the process of going back and forth. You will both get accustomed to revisiting the progress you've made and the setbacks you've come across and how you've come across these if you see it as a loop. Resistance is rarely shown in just one conversation, and it's rarely resolved all at once. When you remove finality, you are inviting imagination and the possibility to enter into something new instead. So now that we're aware that resistance is data and it's information we can use, we can start to co-create meaning from that information. You can use that resistance to deepen the relationship and increase their self-awareness. Think of it like this. You're now able to go beyond the surface level, and you have the chance to show them you are curious about the story they're telling themselves. Why are they self-sabotaging? And let's put it all together. So the three things I'd like to leave you with here today are: consistency in relationships builds trust. Demonstrate consistency. Honesty is essential. Transparent and open communications between you both helps to keep the dialogue open. And both of you honest and real. It allows for vulnerability and it shows that you trust the other person. Give them the gift of your authenticity and allow for vulnerability. Show that you trust them and demonstrate respect in everything that you do. Make the other person the center of your attention at the mentoring meetings and use these meetings to focus on the mentoring topics. So I'm done. This is it. Thank you for coming for this today, and I wish you all of your success in your mentoring endeavors. I'd love to hear from you on how you've helped your mentors to progress and to change. And you'll see here, I have a lot more to share, but I could have gone on for hours and hours on this. So I've made a free download. If you want to capture that, you can just click on copy the QR code here, and it'll take you to a download. And that's it from my side. Thank you, Helene, again. And thank you folks for participating. And I'll stop sharing now, right?
Thank you so much, Debbie, for your presentation. It was amazing and so inspiring to hear you. We still have some time for questions. So if you haven't already, you can please type your question in the Q&A box or chat, and we have still some time so we can address them now. So don't be shy and share your question now. We have one from Bernard, I guess.
Right. Thank you, Bernard, for being there. When does patience run out and you have to put your foot down and hold your mentee to account for failing to deliver on yet another commitment they made to you? Yeah, happens to us all, doesn't it? Right. So it's the thing is why are they not committing? What's going on? There's something behind that. There's a reason for that. That they feel like it doesn't apply to me, not my life, not my thing, or I have too much going on. That means something else has a higher priority for them. They're self-sabotaging. And the question is, why are they self-sabotaging? Do they not want that new job? Do they not want that new role? Do they not want the new responsibility? What is it that's holding them back? And that would be what you would want to explore with them. You would have that conversation. What's going on for you? Why don't you want to do this? You don't want to ask them that question, but you would say, what's important for you about this goal? What would you like to see happening in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks? How can we move that forward? What's the next step? Martin says, what do you consider the best skill set required to become a coach? Yes, good question, because actually we can all be good coaches. The skill set needed is to be an active listener, to really, really listen, and not come up with answers all the time. You don't have to have the answer. You just have to be there to listen. In coaching, I mean, my education was in coaching. I spent 2 years learning it. And what we did was we learned a lot of interventions. We learned a lot of neurological things of how to get around the blocks that people are putting themselves into. But you don't have to do that to be a good coach. You just have to be a good listener. You have to listen and leave the space for someone to think about an answer. Don't come up with the answer all the time. Don't be the one with the answer. Gary says, at the agreement stage, is this something you can do? When will you do it? And what might stop you? And if it does, what will you do next? At the agreement stage. Is this something you can do? An agreement stage. Yeah, I think what that is at the outset, you're telling them what they can expect of you, and you're telling them what you expect of them. And then you ask them, what do you expect of me? And what are you committing to bring back to me? So how are we committing to one another to what is going to go forward? I like to talk in metaphors. So let's talk about, let's say that someone who wants to have coming to you for coaching, they see an opportunity to grow in their organization. They're really, really happy about moving forward. They're really anxious and eager and concerned about it. But how about, and they come to you and they say, I'm going to pay you to mentor me. And then they start self-sabotaging. They don't come to the meetings. They don't fill out the forms that you ask them to do. They don't make the connections you're asking them, you're giving them. Find out what that means. Find out why they're doing that. And Gary says, I meant when they say they will take a specific action. Okay, Gary, I don't understand. Not totally. At the agreement stage, and they will take a specific action, but they don't? What might stop you? Maybe you want to clarify for me? I'm sorry, Gary. I'm having a moment. I just don't get it. Yeah.
I think he's referring to the agreement stage at the very beginning. Yeah.
Okay. Bernard asked, what will you do if the client doesn't do anything? Exactly. Exactly. I mean, it's like Gary is another coach. So I know Gary's well versed at this. So at some point in time, you have to recognize you're wasting your time. If that's the situation, if you're wasting your time, don't do it anymore. Stop wasting your time. You can only help someone who is willing to be helped. If it's someone who's actually going through, let's say they haven't opened up to you and told you, they have a child at home with a colic and they're not sleeping well, or their husband or their wife is just ill or something's going on there, and they're just not able, they don't have the mind space to do that right now. It would be helpful to understand what is it that's going on and take it from there. If there's resistance and it's a sense of, I'm not gonna let you tell me something. If it's a psychological reactance resistance, like I just am against this because I'm just principally against everything, then maybe you just don't want to waste your time with them. That's your time is valuable as well. So it's actually you want to get at the base of what's going on beneath the surface. And again, like I said, resistance is information. You want to figure out, what is it that they're trying to tell me? What cues are they sending me that something's going on here? Roman says, do you recommend following the same mentorship structure for all mentees, regardless of their profession, seniority, or prefer some adjustment or customization? Yes, it's a good question, because if you're mentoring someone who's maybe more experienced than you, or but you're mentoring them in an area that they're not familiar with. Let's say you're mentoring a senior leader who has just started their own business, and you've been an entrepreneur for forever, and they've never been an entrepreneur, but they've been a senior leader, vice president in a company or a corporation. You can adjust the way you mentor them according to the questions that they have, what they need. And this type of person is going to be very grateful for you to have a plan and for you to share what that plan would be. So you are you. You have to know who you are. You have to know why you're there. And you have to know that you're there to support them, and it's their narrative. It's their narrative that you actually are there to support, not yours. So find out whose story it is that you're following. Okay, so here's this. Al says, Germany has best vocational school training, which focuses more on practical hands-on training and produces disciplined scholars. Do you think this is better than going straight to mentoring mentees without having gone through this? I don't see both of them as the same thing, personally. I think, when you go to a vocational school, you're learning the tricks of the trade. You're learning what it takes to do whatever it is you're doing, and the job, whatever it needs to do for the job. And if you're mentoring someone, you're actually helping them to understand how they fit in with that job, what their goals are, and how to address it, and how they are specifically how they are. So they may be different than how they address something. And, the vocational school, let's think about vocational school of a painter, someone who paints houses, right? They paint houses, and you've got a young guy, 17 years old, he's learning how to be a painter of houses. And you've got a young lady, also 17 years old, learning how to paint houses. And she says that I don't like the jokes they're saying, on the building site. I mean, that really kind of bothers me. Can you help me to get around this somehow? How can I tell them I don't want to hear this? How can I tell them to treat me with a little bit more respect? That would be a mentoring situation. And you don't learn that in a vocational school. Hope that helps.
Thank you, Debbie. Any other questions, guys? Otherwise, I think we're going to wrap up. So if you still have questions, feel free to use the chat box, raise your hand, or the Q&A box. But I think maybe it's time to wrap up. Okay. Okay, so today's session has offered us not just deeper understanding of resistance in mentoring, but also practical strategies to respond with patience, clarity, and compassion. Debbie's guidance on staying grounded, maintaining trust, and navigating difficult mentoring moments reminds us that effective mentorship is as much about how we listen and adapt as it is about the guidance we give. A big thank you once again to you, Debbie, for sharing your wisdom and authenticity with us today. It's been both inspiring and highly practical. And thank you to everyone who joined us. We hope you found this webinar meaningful and insightful. As a reminder, this session was recorded and will be shared with you shortly by email. It will be also accessible from the International Mentoring Center YouTube channel soon. And if you would like to join us for future events or learn more about IMC, you can visit the website mentoringcenter.org. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you so much. And
Thank you, everyone.
last comment from Bernard saying, thank you, Debbie. Excellent presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Bernard. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, guys. Take care and see you soon. Bye.